Good afternoon, everyone. This is the 1-minute warning before we start our webinar on patios or outdoor eating areas. If you want to grab a cup of coffee or of water, we'll be beginning shortly. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you haven't already muted your line and you wanted to, that would be fantastic. And you'll also notice if you hover your mouse and you haven't used Teams before, there's a little chat icon, and it's that chat icon that we'll be using to monitor and answer questions towards the end of the webinar. But before we get started, I just wanted to respectfully acknowledge that Peterborough Public Health is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, Georgina Island First Nations. Peterborough Public Health respectfully acknowledge that the Williams Treaty's First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We're all treaty people. With all of that said, I just wanted to point out about health and integrity and the role that we all have to play. So thank you very much for that. I've got the lines muted, so again, I'm going to reference people to that chat feature on the right-hand side. And I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and we're going to officially begin. So my name is Keith Beecroft. I'm a health promoter here at Peterborough Public Health. Along the line with us is Julie Ingram, who's our manager of environmental health, Janet Dawson, who's a health promoter as well, working in the background to help support a lot of these agencies. Brian and John from the city will have a chance to chime in as well with some of the things that they've been working on. But for today, we just wanted to throw this out there that this is the Outdoor Seating Areas for Eating Establishments webinar. There's been a lot of changes that have come down the pipes in the last 72 hours, and we're hoping to be able to work together to make sure that the responsibility is shared both between the customers, the establishments, and the folks on the city end and public health end as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Janet. And Janet, if you just want to let me know when you want the slides advanced, that would be great.
Perfect. Thumbs up that you can hear me?
Loud and clear.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. I do recognize that this was a bit of a flurry to put this together, given the announcements happening earlier this week. So we're happy that we could try to put something together to clarify a little bit. We just wanted to identify that we are recording this webinar, so it is available for reference after, or also if you know somebody in the field that wanted to participate but was unable to, it will be available on our website. The presentation is based on everything current as of this morning, and as I know we've all learned, things are changing all the time. But this is based on our current interpretations of what was received up to this morning. So this is also an opportunity for us to outline what we see as some of the changing requirements, but it is also your responsibility as an operator to check out the various guidance documents, and we have provided a resource list at the end of the webinar. This is not intended to provide legal guidance by any way, shape, or form, but we are hoping that it is an opportunity to review some of the public health measures that are required for your establishments. And we do recognize that the City of Peterborough is on this webinar to outline the process that they have in place for city establishments. However, there are also many people on the call from the county today, and which is great. The public health measures that we will be outlining are applicable whether you are in the city or the county, but you do need to check with your local municipality with regards to specific requirements that they may have for any current, new, or expansions to outdoor eating areas. So as I mentioned, this webinar is intended for eating establishments, whether that's a restaurant, a bar, a coffee shop, and we know that there are various types of establishments in play, whether pre-existing, new, or expansion, and it deals with private and public property. So we do hope to cover off a bit of information in the beginning and also entertain your questions at the end. So I do encourage you to use the chat function. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview, we will review the current emergency orders that are in place, the stage 2 opening process from the province, what the public health measures will look like. And again, this will be whether you're in the city or the county. This is what the public health measures will apply for your establishment. And then we will turn it over to the city, who can then outline some of the things that they've been thinking about for city establishments. And then we'll get to the important Q&A that I know you're all waiting for. So just wanted to give a little context. We are still in a state of emergency that the province has that in effect until June 30th presently. Could be extended, but we do know that it is in effect till June 30th. We do know that the province does have current emergency orders in effect. And so those emergency orders pertain to how certain operations happen for the province, and the ones that are really pertaining to the establishments that we're discussing today are the restrictions on social gatherings order, which is going to move as of 12:01 tomorrow morning to a maximum of 10. And then the closures of places of non-essential businesses and closure of establishments emergency order will be adjusted at 12:01 a.m. Friday to then show that restaurants will be eligible to have the curbside pickup as well as the outdoor seating area requirement. So that emergency order will be adjusted as of 12:01 tomorrow morning. Next slide, please. So just to situate where we are today, we're not sure, there's a lot of press and there's a lot of different pieces of information, so you may not be familiar with the provincial reopening framework. You likely were all familiar with the phase 1 that we were in, which was really the shelter in place request from the province back in March and in April. We did enter the phase 2 stage 1 reopening of our communities earlier in May, and officially tomorrow the phase 2 stage 2 will start. You may be familiar with the Peterborough Public Health Region has been given the green light to proceed into that stage. There are some health unit regions that are not allowed to proceed into the phase 2 stage 2. And so we just wanted to make sure that folks are aware that the moving into stages and phases are based on public health and health system metrics and monitoring, and so they will dictate whether we move up in a stage or we move back. But right now, Peterborough Public Health is in a phase 2 stage 2 reopening process. So I just wanted to take a pause and recognize that reopening, it doesn't matter what stage you're in phase 2. So whether you're in the stage 1, which we just came out of, stage 2, or stage 3, the personal public health measures still remain. They are still in effect. And what that means is everyone should maintain a minimum of 2 meters from anyone who's not in the same household. And so that we need to continue to practice physical distancing. That is a requirement for everyone and everyone entering your establishment. So that we wanted to reiterate. Also, over 70 years old and anyone with underlying medical conditions should be still self-isolating. So these individuals should not, be taking non-essential trips at this time, non-essential errands at this time. So over 70 and underlying medical conditions should still try to remain to just the essential trips only. Frequent hand washing is absolutely the #1 recommendation of choice. And if not, then we also would advise using hand sanitizer. Practice responsible respiratory etiquette. We also encourage wearing a face covering when physical distancing is a challenge. It doesn't replace physical distancing. We still need to physical distance, but we now also have the option of wearing a face covering or a face mask. We do have some guidance on that on our website. Cleaning and frequently disinfecting of commonly touched surfaces. And again, we don't want to see any large gatherings, and particularly over 10 with the new emergency orders that will be adjusted tomorrow. Great. So as of tomorrow morning, 12:01 a.m., eating establishments, so food, drink, will be able to offer the outdoor dining option, and also continue with that takeout and curbside pickup. So some places, though, why we felt it was really important to have a conversation today about some of the public health measures is some places may decide that it's just more feasible to still offer the curbside pickup option, and it may not be feasible for you to do the outdoor seating at this time because of the physical distancing measures. But we thought we would outline the options today for you, or the information, and then that will allow you to make those decisions. If you are preparing to open for an outdoor dining, outdoor seating area, then we need to make sure that you prepare your physical space. So we have some slides on that. That would also include a traffic flow plan, and that's not for cars. Traffic flow meaning all the people that will be staff and customers, and how they will flow, as I'm sure you can relate to the grocery stores that you've recently been visiting and the traffic flow that they have in grocery stores. This will require some development of some protocols and then training of staff to make sure everybody is on side. Next slide, please. So we recognize that there are some various types of establishments right now. There are eating establishments with a license that have a pre-existing outdoor area on private and public property. And this is where the specific details of the municipality will really come into play, because then there will obviously be people that are looking at how do we expand that. There will be people that are looking at how they can seek a new approval, how the new approval will work with licensed or non-licensed. So we recognize there's lots of different subtypes of establishments, but we thought we would take a moment to outline. Doesn't matter whether you're current, you're looking to expand, or you're looking to get a new, the public health measures we will outline right now will apply for everybody. Next slide. Okay, let's get into this. Next slide. Okay, so the big question that everybody is asking, how much space for an outdoor seating area? So that we thought we would start with this one right away. So if you're a pre-existing licensed and unlicensed outdoor seating, if you have a patio and it's already established, then you need to move forward with your planning at reducing the number of patrons that you were approved for on that patio to a maximum of 50% of the previously approved capacity. So you need to design your space for 50% of the previously approved capacity. Now, if you're a new or you're willing to expand. We recognize you don't have a seating capacity yet, so you're trying to identify what that space would be if you're trying to plan your new space. And according to guidance from the AGCO, which we are using for licensed or unlicensed seating areas, you need to allow for a minimum of 1.11 square meters per person. So that's a minimum. You can go higher than that for increased safety, but a minimum of 1.11 square meters per person. Next slide. Okay, so now that you have your spacing, so pre-existing, you have to think of 50% capacity. New, you're trying to create space for at least 1.11 square meters. We need to then apply the public health measures. So the application of the public health measures is the 2-meter rule. So you need to ensure that your seating areas are arranged so that physical distancing of at least 2 meters between patrons from different households. We are asking that the table and chairs are designed in such a way that you leave at least 1 meter from the outer limit of the perimeter, and that will allow for physical distancing of the server to get around the table. You're prohibited from using any overhead structures at this time, such as tents and canopies, but we do recognize that shade is a huge issue, and you are encouraged to use umbrellas. We are really doing this at this time so that we can make sure that we don't have structures in place for physical distancing measures, and that we will review this on an ongoing basis around whether this guidance needs to change as we start to see how this will take shape and what traffic pedestrian movement will look like. We also wanted to highlight that due to an amendment to Regulation 719, the AGCO has indicated that licensed areas are not required to define the boundary by at least a 0.9 meter partition. So that has been a previous requirement, particularly for licensed establishments. So you are not required now to have the 0.9 meter partition. However, you are required to clearly distinguish licensed areas to areas where the license does not apply. So if you are particularly an existing patio with frontage onto a municipal street, you will need to delineate that in some fashion. I'm just going to pause for a moment now and just see if my colleague Julie has anything more to highlight from the physical distancing slides before we get into protocols.
Thanks, Janet. No, at this point, I'm good to go, and I think we just keep on rolling, and we're happy to take questions at the end.
Great. Okay, so we're just going to roll into some protocols. So a lot of people are asking, how do we keep our customers and staff safe during this time? So not only is the huge requirement to figure out your physical space and how you are going to design that and the setup of the tables with the 2-meter rule, but then it's also a requirement to develop protocols so that anybody entering your establishment, staff or customers, feel safe as well. And we do have some guidance for what that could look like. So, and we'll review that right now. We'll go to the next slide and I'll discuss physical distancing first. Okay, so physical distancing, everything that we've grown to love over the last 3 months. It's a very common term, and the 2 meters is the way we need to go. So it would be best for your establishment at this time to develop a traffic flow plan. And so that will be an overview of your establishment and how the regular routes that people would walk and take. So you are not allowed anybody indoors at this time. So what I want to clarify what I mean by that is if people are coming and their reservation time isn't quite ready, they still can't wait inside. The only thing they can enter inside for is to pay and to use the washroom or to walk through the establishment to get to the outdoor eating area. So you'll need to think about the pathways people will take from that will take to get through the establishment for those reasons only. And so, I mean, we have been under emergency orders for quite some time. There could be excitement brewing for attending your establishment, but it is a requirement right now to ask to take reservations, and this is really for your benefit only, to prevent lineups and to prevent overcrowding. Overcrowding will then quickly get to the maximum gathering size of 10. So we need to make sure you have a plan in place to limit that overcrowding. And then if you get into lineups, depending on where you're situated, that would require that you have physical distancing space in your lineups and somebody to monitor that. So it's really to your advantage to make sure you have a reservation system, and also that will give you an opportunity to provide time limits of so that you can clean the space and have somebody else come in to use that table. So reservations you'll need to prepare and develop a system for that. And then you'll have to use signage and floor markings to clearly outline how patrons will enter for the reservation. And if you are also offering the pickup or the takeout option, where those folks will stand as well. You do not want to have the patrons that are waiting for the pickup standing close to the outdoor seating area. You need to make sure you maintain 2 meters distance from those spaces. I would recommend a plan in place to deal with if crowding does occur. I know we're all changing very rapidly. There'll be a lot of monitoring that will need to happen when you decide to open, and then being prepared to make changes to your plan to adjust if there are pinch points or crowding that's taking place. Very common that we're seeing is one-way aisles or walkways that are clearly marked for the direction of travel. And this would also include the aisles and walkways that patrons use to access the washroom, and then also ones for staff as well. And for staffing, you will want to come up with a physical distancing plan to stagger their shifts or stagger their breaks, and come up with a physical distancing plan for where staff congregate, typically like in a lunchroom or that sort of thing. We have lots of signage, which is linked on the slide deck, and you will be able to access that when we share the recording. And we also have a signage link on our website, and you can access the physical distancing signage there. Next slide, please. Screening and signage is very, very important. You will want to pass post screening, such as the one you see here. It is available on our website for you to reproduce. This is an example of passive screening. And really what it is encouraging the patron to stop and look and see whether they're experiencing anything on the screening signage. However, I want to flag that active screening should be in place for staff. Staff should not be at work if they're experiencing any symptoms. So you will want to come up with a process and some policies for how you will implement your active screening, and then tracking schedules to know which employees have worked together. Should a person test positive, that will help public health with our contact management of potential contacts of the positive case. All right, we just want to pause and have a chat about protective equipment. The common term I think that we're all getting used to is PPE. That is personal protective equipment, and that is typically in relation to medical masks, and they really must be reserved for those providing direct care in clinical settings. However, there's been lots of conversation around non-medical masks, NMM, which is the new acronym. And we do encourage the use of non-medical masks for staff and guests when physical distancing is a challenge. This is not a replacement for physical distancing. We really want to highlight that. Really, the most important control you can put in place is the 2-meter physical distancing, but the non-medical masks also add another layer of control. We have guidance on non-medical masks on our website, and we've also provided a graphic here for you to review when we share with you the recording link today. All right, so definitely another protocol that needs to be put in place is how the enhanced environmental cleaning and disinfection will go. This is such a critical component to managing the spread of COVID-19. We've provided a link to Public Health Ontario with the cleaning and disinfection for public health or for public settings, which really highlights that highly touched surfaces or frequently touched surfaces need to be cleaned twice a day. So in addition, if they are dirty or look soiled and form. So we've provided some guidance there on tables and chairs in your setting, where people would rest their hands, any light switches, doorknobs, handles, constant cleaning of the touch pads to pay, any kind of cleaning and disinfecting would be required. And we've provided some guidance on disinfectants must have a drug identification number. Next slide. Right, okay, another very important control for everybody, staff, patrons, is we just need to make sure we are practicing excellent hand hygiene. And so this really cannot be stressed enough. It's critical for anybody entering your facility to wash their hand or use hand sanitizer. There will need to be signage of this effect. You will need to have a protocol in place for the washing or the sanitizing, and then also a good supply of the sanitizer. We've provided a link to the signage. It's available on our website, and this can't be stressed enough for anybody entering your establishment. Next slide. Great. I'm just going to turn it over to Julie, who's just going to outline some food safety protocols.
Okay, thanks, Janet. So just a reminder that I expect everybody that's opening an outdoor eating area is going to be a food premises, and therefore we need to be reminded that all requirements of Ontario Regulation 493 food premises will continue to apply. Obviously right now we are still in the pandemic, so cleaning, sanitizing, hygiene all become exceptionally important. Not only are we asking ill staff to be prohibited from working in light of COVID, but that is a requirement of the food premises regulation as well, that staff should be healthy. So please keep that in mind. We have to have certified food handlers on site. There needs to be at least one during each hour of operation. And the tables and chairs that you're going to be using for your outdoor seating areas also need to be able to be cleaned and disinfected adequately. So they can't be porous. If you are planning on using picnic tables or something like that, then it would be needed to cover them with something that is smooth and non-porous, so like a vinyl tablecloth or something along those lines. When this recording gets released, that link, the Restaurant and Food Services Health and Safety During COVID-19, has a lot of good detail and advice. So I would encourage everybody to review that information. And also, you can contact your local public health inspector. I'm not sure if we have anybody on the call that's outside of the city or county of Peterborough or Hiawatha Curve Lake First Nation, but if you are, please get in touch with your local public health agency. Otherwise, for the rest of you, you can call us here at Peterborough Public Health and we'll be able to help you out. And I'll take this part two. So as we are talking about patios, it's important to remind yourselves that under the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, all smoking and vaping is prohibited on outdoor seating areas or patios. And that is from within a 9-meter radius of any point on from the perimeter of the patio. So that's quite a distance, and that is provincial legislation. So we cannot veer from that, and that will be enforced. You have to have appropriate signage in the area according to the Smoke Free Ontario Act, and you cannot have any ashtrays or say cigarette butt receptacles anywhere in the vicinity. If you do find yourselves in need of signage, you can download some at the link provided, or you can call us here at the health unit and we can help you out with that as well.
Great. So I don't know, are we turning it over now to other folks, Janet, or?
Yeah, at this time, that was the conclusion of looking at the public health measures for spaces in the city and county and Peterborough Public Health Region. But we just wanted to invite our city colleagues. Brian Bouchard is on the call from the city of Peterborough. He's an urban design planner, and we've been chatting about outdoor seating areas in the context of the city processes, as well as John Kennedy is on the call from the clerk's office. So I just wanted to invite John and Brian. I'm not sure which one of you would like to go first.
John, why don't you go first?
Brian, ever the gentleman. Thanks, everybody. With the recent announcement that municipalities can approve patio extensions on outdoor spaces and on public spaces, the city's been and staff have been working diligently here to prepare a number of processes to assist businesses with those their requests and those approvals. Starting with this evening, council will meet at a special council meeting to provide delegated authority to our CAO position to be able to close roads or lanes within the city, and in particular the downtown, and to assist with patio extensions. So that's one step that we anticipate council will approve this evening. In anticipation of that delegated authority, traffic staff and others are diligently working on a plan for this weekend to provide some road closures in the downtown to again assist with some existing extensions of patios, which would allow for proper social distancing. So that's in the works as we speak right now. Traffic, Public Works, others are working on a traffic plan for that. It's my understanding that further details will be provided as early as later today on that. It is anticipated that that plan will be in place for late afternoon tomorrow, recognizing that that's when patios can exist outside. So that's in the works right now. There will be, stay tuned, our communications department will have further details on that as they unfold. In terms of this weekend and what is approved, any existing patio extensions that have been improved through my colleague Brian in the planning department, those are approved for this weekend. And going forward, as I said, staff are working on a longer term plan, which we will be rolling out early next week and into next weekend to allow any new requests for patio extensions to be approved. So we're working on an expedited approval process for that. It's sort of twofold. There is the logistics that go with that in terms of the road closures and the delegated authority that will be provided to our CAO. And then they're looking at traffic planning in the downtown to assist with the patio extensions, to also allow for proper egress with pedestrians, keeping in mind the social distancing requirements, traffic flow, and parking. We know that, in particular in the downtown, we know that many businesses are interested in being able to maintain their curbside pickup. So there's many of these factors are being considered for a longer term plan, which would assist with new patio extensions. So those are a few of the things that are in the works right now. That's a kind of high level. What I'll do is I'll turn it over to my colleague Brian, who has some more details on what that might look like.
Thank you, John. I just have to say, and I think this is important, notwithstanding the maximum space allotment per person, this 1.11 square meters, or the maximum 50% occupancy rule communicated by the province, it's really the 2-meter rule which will determine how many patrons restaurants can have in their patio space, if, of course, the patrons are not from the same household. If a group of people are from the same household, it potentially results in a lot more patrons on that patio. I've got a little sketch here, if I can share my screen. Can everybody see that?
I can't, Brian.
Okay, one moment, please.
Nope.
Share the screen, please. Share. There you go. That will work.
We see it now. Thanks, Brian.
Great. So that rectangle represents your average sidewalk cafe or patio space, say on Hunter Street in the city of Peterborough, or sidewalk cafe district. And typically it's 2.7 meters out from the building face, and it varies, but that restaurant's building frontage on the street may be around 5.5 meters. When you try to place tables and chairs within that space, you quickly see that it's a challenge to place tables and chairs and still maintain that physical distancing of 2 meters. Not only do you need physical distancing of 2 meters from other patrons within the space, but also from pedestrians passing by. So this kind of gives you a bit of an illustrative guide on what may happen here. If you look at the table and chair setup on the right-hand side, if people are not from the same household, they have to sit a good distance away from each other, and it doesn't work very well. You may find that it's better for people to sit at single tables and chairs if they're not from the same household, and space them appropriately. If from the same household, you obviously can potentially achieve a much greater density of patrons within your enclosure or your defined patio space. So this was just to show you what it actually means on the ground. 2.75 meters is approximately 9 feet. 5.5 meters is probably around 15 feet. And when you think about having to define spaces for people to circulate, it becomes even more challenging. So I wanted to make people aware of what it actually means on the ground for the setup of patios on sidewalks. I can take any questions if anybody has some.
Sure. Maybe what we can do then is just encourage people again to use that chat feature on the side. So if you do kind of scroll your mouse over the screen, you'll see a menu pop up that has the video recorder and the microphone. The last button is a conversation button, so please feel free to enter your questions there. But in the meantime, I'm happy to ask those, and whomever from the city or public health wants to answer, by all means, jump in. The first question, if our capacity is 200 people and we need to get to 50% seating would be 100 people. So are we allowed to have 100 people, or is maximum of 10 people still applied?
Well, I can answer that in part, because if they're not from the same household, the 2 meter rule applies. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, public health.
So it's Julie. I'll jump in here a little bit on that. That is the direction that we are going with this right now, is that we are encouraging that members of the same household only continue to group together. Keep in mind that we are also waiting for the language in the legislation to come out, with hope tomorrow. and maybe get some more clarity. But until that comes, right now, it's members of the same household eating together, otherwise 2 meters apart. So a question about capacity and saying 50%, can you do 100 people with tables and chairs and accommodating the different demands and the physical distancing on your outdoor eating area and have 100 people? You need to make that determination. If it is an inspected by, I don't know, the police or the OPP or a public health inspector or AGCO, and it's not suitable, you will be told to reduce it. So you really need to make that decision. With respect to the maximum of 10, and that what the anticipated language from the order that we're expecting to come tomorrow, I expect that will not be applying to patio situations, that they will be permitted to have their entitlements on that.
Great, thanks, Julie. Second question, if we are a bar service only, where customers pick up their order and seat themselves, do we need to create the 1 meter space for servers, or can we just focus on one-way paths and signs?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I'm struggling with this question a little bit because my impression is that I don't know where the bar is located, but going into a facility at this point, you can't go to the bar and order your drinks. Like, it would have to be table service. That is my impression from what has been released, but I would encourage the asker of this question to contact the AGCO directly, perhaps, to get some clarification there. I would expect that your servers are at least picking up glasses and whatever other utensils that you're using. You want to protect your servers as much as possible and be giving them as much space as possible. So I would say that it's going to apply regardless.
Thanks, Julie. Next question. If no cover is allowed other than umbrellas, how can we expect the comfort of guests for heat and weather elements? What is the reason open air tents are not allowed? And then they go on to suggest that beyond when the sun is directly overhead between 11 and 2, an umbrella wouldn't be sufficient to protect from the elements. So the two-part question there about umbrellas and comfort, and what is the reason open air tents are not allowed?
Okay, fantastic questions. Janet, do you want to take this, or did you want me to take this?
Oh, I think you're on a roll.
Okay, so with the quick turnaround of these announcements, one of the reasons that we have said no overhead covers is because in some areas, setting up a tent or a canopy is going to impede pedestrian traffic around the area and is going to impact physical distancing. If you are in an area that will not be the case, then this can be considered, but you should be consulting with public health. But if you can do it safely so that it's open air and it's just an overhead coverage and the setup will not impede movement around or pedestrians coming through the area, then it is likely going to be okay. With that said, setup of any tents or any structures, you really should be consulting with your local municipality on that, no matter where you're located. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that. It was, we're in a quick turnaround and we really need to promote physical distancing as much as possible. So the fewer obstructions, the better. But we understand that that's not a one size fits all. So, yeah, the sun, we definitely want to protect people from the sun. So if that's a need of yours, then I think it would be good to consider if that's something that you can accommodate and facilitate, and talk to your public health inspector if needed.
Thanks, Julie. Another good question that kind of spills off of that one. Front porches that aren't glassed in or screened in, are they fine?
A front porch. I guess I'd want to see it. I'm having a hard time envisioning what that might mean, but if it's open air, then I would consider it an outdoor eating space.
Thank you. Follow-up question, can you provide entertainment on the patio?
I can jump in there, Keith. At this time, there's no stipulation around the entertainment that you offer on your patio. However, we just want to recognize that if you do provide entertainment and it is loud, that does mean that patrons typically have to shout or yell to hear each other, which then increases their chance of droplets coming out when they are talking. So I would make sure that you're considering a more reasonable volume of entertainment on your outdoor eating area.
Thank you. Are dogs allowed on the patio?
Oh, somebody's paying attention to recent legislative changes. That's fantastic. So recently, the food premises regulation was amended, and the short answer is yes, dogs are allowed on patios. However, you as a restaurant owner or operator do not necessarily have to allow dogs on patios. It is completely up to the discretion of the operator. There's a lot of best practices now for this situation. It's recommended that you have signage to indicate if your premises is dog friendly. Dogs have to be kept under control on a leash. You know, I could go on and on and on. With that said, a dog to me at this time is another obstruction. And we're very big right now on reducing the number of obstructions in order to facilitate physical distancing. So legally, yes, a dog is permitted on a patio. Practically, I would say you may want to reconsider that until we get through and maybe into the next phase.
And I guess I'd add to that too, if we look at Brian's picture on the screen, you'd have to imagine we already have some very, very tight spaces. And so you would have to imagine, maybe even to the previous question, where would the entertainment go? That would then require some physical distancing space that would limit your patron access, and then also the dog in there too. So just some thoughts to consider.
Great. Thanks, Janet. Just a little bit of clarification sought here. We have to have signage on the inside for the expanded area saying it is licensed only if it's extended into a parking lot. And on the outside of that expanded fencing patio, there needs to be signage saying not licensed. Clarification, please. I don't know if John or Brian wants to take that one.
I can't answer that one. Sorry.
Yeah, this is Julie. I'll jump in. I can't answer the question about signage of licensed versus unlicensed areas. Again, I would need to direct that question to the AGCO.
Terrific. Just some quick props here, Brian. Great visual. Everybody's appreciating it. Seeing that in the chat. What if your porch or patio is surrounded by green space that is private property?
And so I guess the question I have is the porch. Okay, let me phrase it this way. So if you're surrounded by private property, I assume the porch or the patio is also on private property. So if you are establishing any outdoor eating areas, regardless, you should consult with the municipality to see if they have any objections. And with respect, if your intent is for it to be a licensed area, you would have to be an already licensed facility with no prohibitions to your liquor license about the sale of alcohol on a patio or an outdoor eating area. But with that said, if you have proximate of private space around you and you either own it or there's no objection by the owner to set up some tables and chairs there, then that's your prerogative. But again, as a business owner or operator, I would be very cautious about liability with that.
Thanks, Julie. Brian, I'm sure that we won't have any issues sharing this specific photo. There's some people requesting copies of the drawing.
No, that wouldn't be a problem at all. I just want to add there too that the municipality wouldn't be involved with an establishment that wanted to create a patio on private property. We are concerned with patios on public property.
Okay, thank you.
And just again, a recording of this webinar will be circulated as well with all of the hyperlinks in the slide deck available to everybody. Next question, do we need to get city approval to expand patio onto private property or just city property? I think you just answered that one, Brian, but just to double check.
I just answered that. Yep, that's no, we're not concerned with the establishment of patios on private property.
Okay. Next question, is the 1 meter space from patio barrier only required when bordered by a public walkway as long as a 1 meter access area is available to staff on the other side?
That's the one I really should have asked.
Yeah, I can clarify that. The diagram is a situation is a typical situation actually on a street where there may be another patio directly abutting, or there may be a doorway directly abutting. Across the frontage of that patio, we typically do have the pedestrian space. So the setback requirement relative to that would apply. Obviously, there's no setback if you want to put a set of chairs and a table abutting your building.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Some clarification again. If only 2 meters is required between chairs of opposite tables, when the customer exits through that area, should they not be 4 meters to allow the customer 2 meters to each other?
Shut up, dude.
That's a good question. I probably should defer to public health on that, because there are situations where people may be sitting in tables and chairs, and there's an awkwardness where the 2 meters may not be able to be observed. Obviously, if nobody is sitting at a table and chair, there is no issue. So I think in my personal opinion, people just have to take a commonsensical approach, realizing what the directives are, and respond accordingly.
Thank you. Follow question. Are we to record contact information of our guests from the reservations in case of a new outbreak?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. Yes, the answer, and the reservations that you would be offering would also provide that contact information.
Terrific.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly it. That's, by keeping reservations, then if we had to do some contact tracing, that would facilitate that. But this question highlights again why we are saying that individuals who are choosing to attend and eat at outdoor eating spaces should be going with their own household. They should know who they have been in contact with and who their close contacts are. That's why it's not a free-for-all commingling on a patio right now, because we do need to be able to contact trace. So that's the other reason that we're pushing that message out too. Keith, you're muted.
I sure am, Julie.
Great.
Almost made it. So we are coming up on about 8 minutes left in the time allotment. So if you do have any last minute questions, please get them in the chat. But I did want to refer people to this resource list that again will be circulated after the presentation. These are all of the guidance documents from the province that will speak to how we can safely and efficiently and effectively get those properties opened up throughout the phase 2, stage 2 that Janet talked about. At the very top of the page, the Stop the Business information line is a direct line to the ministry and a lot of their resources. So if you do have specific questions, they're able to help navigate some of the resources that are available. The last few times that we've called them, we've been able to get through pretty much right away after kind of navigating the press 1 for this, press 2 for that. So I do want to put a plug in for the business information line. And again, some of the resources that we talked about earlier are all hyperlinked here and will help you with opening up tomorrow at 12:01.
We
do have
resources on the screen. I just wanted to say we couldn't see the resources on the screen.
Oh, they're not being shared?
Might be just my screen.
2 for 2. 0 for 2. How about now? Well, I promise when you get them, they're going to be really exciting.
They are included in the recording, everyone.
Yeah. A couple other questions have come in that little interim piece. Are we to monitor who's seated at each table to look at ID to make sure that everyone is from the same household?
Right now, I would say that it's not a requirement of a owner of a premises. That's where I suppose that we're pushing the message to public who are going to these facilities. But with that said, I think if you had a group of 10 people come in, you're probably going to have a pretty good sense of if those are a group of 10 friends or from a same household, and that should be prohibited. Like a big group of 10 random people coming together. No, that wouldn't be okay right now.
Thanks, Julie. Is all new outdoor seating approved in light of all of this, or do patios still need to be approved by the municipality? Specifically, can we add tables to our sidewalk if we can maintain the 1 meter distance between pedestrians and 2 meters between tables?
I can start with an answer, and I'd suggest my colleague Brian may wish to jump in. Currently, effective for tomorrow, any existing patios that have been approved through Brian's office are approved to go forward for the weekend, and staff are working on an expedited application or template process that will allow businesses who are not currently approved to seek approval, as I said, in an expedited manner. So we'll have information available shortly, it'll be early next week, we think, to allow businesses to apply. And with the delegated authority we anticipate from the CAO tonight, we'll be in a position to go forward with those new requests for approval. But Brian may wish to add to that.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so in other words, patios or restaurants wishing to expand their patio beyond the limits of their current city-approved patio cannot go forward at this time, because we don't have the physical distancing measures in place. We need to create much larger corridors for pedestrian travel, for example, adjacent to these spaces. As well, new patios cannot go forward at this time until those changes are physically in place on our city streets.
Great. And Brian, you had a comment here too that I think we've all been chatting a lot about. Those garage door style patios, a lot of them downtown. Would people sitting adjacent to those sidewalks in that space be permitted?
Yes, that's a question that has been posed to me, and I was curious to know how public health might respond to that.
Julie?
Sure, yeah. My short answer is no. Unfortunately, I do seriously apologize and sincerely apologize, but it is within the structure. So it's not an outdoor seating area, but hopefully maybe you can look at through the expedited approval, if you are in the city, through that approval of maybe utilizing the sidewalk space sooner rather than later. So once we progress through the plan with the city and we have some more measures implemented to enhance physical distancing, I'd encourage you to explore that option.
Terrific. A little bit of clarification, Janet, you mentioned this earlier. Can you clarify the rules on live music on patios? I have read it is prohibited.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And there's still lots of regulations emerging on how we try to support establishments moving forward with tomorrow. At present time, I'm not familiar with a regulation that has them prohibited, although they're strongly not recommended at this time. Also because it would require you to provide more distancing space. But we will definitely look into that to see if there's been new changes in the regulations.
Terrific. And with that said, it's coming up on 1:59, so consider this final call for questions. Carrie Toychich from our office is on the call right now, and she'll be processing this video in the background so that we'll have it posted to our YouTube channel. And as soon as that is ready, we'll send out the link with the resources that were referenced today. And again, we do encourage you to contact your municipality if you have specific property questions, or public health if you have specific restaurant or food premise questions. This is new for everybody, and it really is a partnership approach moving forward, and we do appreciate all that you're doing to help the guests as they come to the Kawarthas. I'm broadcasting from Duro Dummer right now, and I can tell you that the 134 is quite busy, which is great news for folks that want to fill their establishments. We just want to make sure that we're doing it in a healthy and safe way for everybody as they come to the Kawarthas this weekend. So with all of that said, and seeing no other questions, we wish you all good day and good luck and good health. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you.